Hey, lovely people. I'm finally talking about this. Finally wanted to just discuss some of the effects of colonialism, primarily colorism, but there's also some other effects that I would call are brainwashing, which has been done to a majority of people of color throughout the world. And if you ever search up the topic of colonial mentality or brainwashing from colonialism, you're actually going to find a lot of information from some Asian countries, in particular Filipino culture. And so let's just talk about some of the ways that colonial mentality shows up. And then from there, we can kind of go into one of the ways that colonial mentality shows up in our society, which is one way through colorism. And then we'll also do a slightly deep dive, if we have some time, into thinking about how would we reverse this brainwashing. Like, what would need to be done to actually revert back to a natural sense of understanding ourselves as people of color, no matter if you're Black, Hispanic, whatever person on this earth that has color, or that has, their country has had the effects of colonialism, which I don't know if there's many places in the world that hasn't. And so at the base, we know that everyone is a person, people are people. There are not inherent things that make one group of people better than the other group of people, right? There's going to be some difference in how we look. Like, for example, there's different traits. Because of my melanin, and a lot of it, I am not going to burn as easily as my less melanin people, right? That doesn't mean I'm better than someone else because of that, right? But what has happened is that most of the world has been told that their melanin makes them less than people with less melanin, which are going to be the European people, or if you could say white people. So here we are, right? So here we are, years and years later, a lot of us, after colonialism has happened and a lot of the effects of colonialism, and we also have at some extent this thinking that white is better. Although again, people are people, we're the same. The only thing that I can think of that comes to mind that makes me different than my one of my white friends is that I can stand the sun better than her, right? At a base level. Now, let's get into this first article. I linked it in the chat here. I don't know if it shows up. Let me see if I can pin it actually. Hey Daddy Days, hope you're well. Thank you for stopping by. Let me know. I don't remember what part of the world you are, but I don't think you're in the US. Are you? Are you in the US or are you in another country? While I look to see if I can pin this video. Let me see. Oh, my live is not actually showing up. That's weird. All right. Well, I don't know if anyone's going to find this live because it is not showing up on my channel. Let me try something and then I'll pin the video. But that's weird. Let's see. Oh, you know what? I think I know what I'm going to do before we get into this. I've set the stage and then I just want to get into this article and also let people know that I'm live because I did not do that. Let's see. I don't know. That's weird. Okay, well, hopefully it's showing people. I'm just going to note out here to my community that I'm live because you all know that I don't do that often. With Harold and Friends, hello. Oh, hey, kicking it with Harold and Friends. Welcome in. All right, I'm live. Okay, so let's get into the first article. I'll share my screen so you guys know what I'm looking at. Daddy Days, you're in Iraq. So that I would include that as a country that has also had some extent of this too. Let's see. I think I'll share this one first, and it's called The 7 Signs You Have Colonial Mentality. There are a couple of these different articles out there, but you're going to see here it says the long lasting impact of colonization in the region can be felt in everything we do. With much of the Arab world having only been free of colonial rule for short of 60 years, we would be remiss to think that colonial mentality, a term which represents internalized and cultural inferiority, keyword inferiority, hasn't persisted to this day. Over the course of history, Britain invaded close to 90% of the world, including most Khaliji, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly, Khaliji nations, as well as Sudan and Egypt. As for North Africa and Levant, French colonialists dominated the region for the better part of the 19th and 20th century. Oh man. And it went at Algeria gaining its independence in 1962. And we've been in the process of decolonizing ourselves ever since. And can we really effectively do that, right? Decolonizing ourselves. With the current conversation about white supremacy dominating headlines across the world, there is no better time to start looking inwards. If you haven't already explored excellent post-colonial thinkers like Edward Said and Frantz Fanon, among others, we've compiled a short list of signs that you might want to start putting into or in the work. Hey, Edward, shout out to my member, Edward. Please check him out. He's all about aviation. And if you're interested in flying planes and aircrafts and things of that nature, please check out Edward Smart right there. All right, so you avoid getting a tan. Now, before I get into this resonated me so much because it was on a personal level and then also within conversations that I heard during my college years. And it's this idea of getting a tan or getting tanner or getting darker. And when I was younger, different people in my family had said things like, don't stay outside in the sun too long. You're going to get darker, right? And, most people that are of color, when you're young, when you're a child, you're typically a little less, melanated. Because over time, you're going to be in the sun. You're going to play in the sun. And our skin gets a little darker over time if you're in a place where there's a lot of sunlight and you're out in the sun. And so that thinking over the years, this is within my own family, within the Black, or if you're African, you may have heard this before, within my own community. Fast forward to college, looking out, people that are not of the Black community. I see Asian people with umbrellas. For some reason, this was the first time I really noticed it because I went to a Jesuit school that happened to have a good amount of students that came from primarily China and other countries throughout Asia. Also like Korea and other places too. But a majority from China. And many would walk around with these umbrellas. Another scenario I had was with a girl on my floor. Her roommate, this girl tells me she bleaches her skin. And to take note of her past photos of when she was younger, she's darker. And when you look at this girl, when you looked at her today, her skin was very fair. And then I learned that in India, which is the person's heritage that I'm talking about, it's very common to see fair and lovely, fair products, right? Not fair and lovely, but fair products. So avoiding getting a tan, that would be a sign of colonial mentality. And so what they say here, hey Teddy, shout out King of Kill as well. King of Kill, let me know if you're starting with some content. Kiki says, my white coach told me this, And I said, I'm already Black. He said, your white coach told you not to tan? Is that what they said to you, Kiki? Interesting. See, for me personally, I've only heard those type of things within the communities of color. On the other end of that, I've seen more so, my white friends and, counterparts hyping up getting a tan, right? The tan was a sign of, hey, you're on vacation a lot, right? That's a good thing. You're tan. That's the color that they looked for, to be a few shades darker, or they're going to a tanning salon. I remember I was somewhere, maybe I was looking for apartments or something, but one of the perks was a tanning bed within the space. And I'm just like, okay, that's not really a benefit for me. I really don't need that. I can walk outside for 10 minutes on a sunny day and I'll be good. But let's get into this here. So you avoid getting a tan. Like many places in the world, the Middle East and North Africa have been colonized. One of the remnants, colorism. So they're noting this, and you hear about this in a lot of Black circles, but they're noting this in the Arab world as well. The Arab world has long been a victim of Eurocentric tropes, one of them being avoidance of the sun in order to avoid getting darker skin, with white skin being viewed as the universal ideal. Right. Before I move on, I'm going to read Kiki's comment. My coach told me this because her track and volleyball, wait, what? So the Black people on the track and volleyball team say it. I was the only Black person on the tennis team. Okay, I see. I gotcha. Interesting. So your white coach had learned it from that's so interesting, because we learned this from white people during colonialism. Like, it's just passed itself down, right? And we continue to learn it over and over and over again throughout our community, through media, through books, through any form really that you can think of. We are conditioning over and over again. It's really interesting. Okay, so the next point, this is number 2. You equate being educated with one's ability to communicate in English or French. And so this actually made me think about the conversation that we had on this channel, where we were talking about, within the Black community, communication, how important communication is for Black Americans, and the differences between, communicating within the Black culture and communicating within, the rest of society here in the US and speaking English, and how important it is when getting educated or getting a job. And I remember Miss Roller asked a question that was really kind of tied into this idea that speaking English really well shows your education. Well, why? Goes back to what? Colonial mentality. So perhaps you speak English due to having been educated in the West, or maybe you learned simply because of the rise of English as a global language. Either way, there's no reason to undervalue Arabic. And if you do, it's probably to do with the fact that colonizers often branded their languages as superior, and even went on to manufacture a local elite who were also Western educated, perpetuating the inferiority of other languages. And I also had I can't say a friend, but someone I had come in contact with while I was in college again, and they were Hispanic. They were actually Mexican. I can say that. So his parents actually did not speak Spanish at home to him because they wanted him to learn English. They wanted him to be, they wanted him to be a part of this culture. They didn't see that value of him speaking Spanish. Later in life, he wished that they had taught him Spanish because he had to learn it over again, right? So he really wished that they had taught him. And so it leads me to this, thinking of the importance of learning English. Now, a part of it is it's the global language, right? But another part of that is, well, we do hold English as a language in high regard, right? So that's another point. Number three, and I see Edward's comment and Kiki's comment. Hey, Ed, my dad was a mechanic for American. That was the only job he's ever had. Good job, a lot of responsibility. Oh, Kiki may enjoy some of Edward's content for sure. Hello, MLW Fishing Man. Welcome. All right, so this goes deep. I didn't know this was an issue within other cultures, and in particular the Arab world. So you dislike your natural hair and your nose. This actually made me think of Michael Jackson because of the nose thing, right? But a lot of us can think about certain features that are typically African features. And there's a lot of diversity when it comes to African features. But typically, you don't always think of it being similar to European features. I partially disagree just because there's so much variety. But I'm going to read the point here. Let me know if you can relate. So, again, with colonization came the setting of European features as global beauty ideals. Among them is straight hair. My hair is not naturally straight. A tiny ski slope nose. That's an interesting way to put that. Ski slope nose. So I'm guessing just a thin nose, right? Despite a natural hair movement being sparked all over the world, keratin and other straightening treatments remain extremely popular in both North Africa and the Middle East, much like the Sweet 16 nose job that continues to prevail. Yes, nose jobs are very common. When you look at, Arab world and Indian, yeah, that kind of makes sense. In the Black community, I don't know if I really heard a lot of comments about nose, the nose feature, but definitely about hair. Hair is extremely important in the Black community. And there has been a trend recently, of course, of embracing your natural hair, your natural curls. For example, my stylist is working on me, but even for myself, I can personally say here with you guys, with you all, that has been a struggle for me personally, and I didn't realize it until my hairstylist, as of late, has been telling me about, I can do wash and goes and these natural styles, but I've always been conditioned to keep my hair straight. So that's something I'm working on, and that is a colonial mentality, actually. And, the obsession within our culture, I can say within Black culture, and again, I didn't really realize this was beyond Black culture in terms of the hair and also the nose thing in particular. But this obsession with slicking down the edges and making sure the hair is sleek and getting the wigs that will keep the hair straight and you can hide your curls underneath or protect your hair underneath. Some of that is just more, hey, this is like what you like. But why do you like it is the question that we have to ask ourselves. Why do we like one style over another? And so I've been asking my question, and it's going to take some deep work, right? For me to appreciate, I appreciate beautiful, natural, African hair texture, right? On other beautiful Black women. But it's going to be another level for me to accept it for myself on my own head, right? So it's like undoing years and years of conditioning from what we see on TV, from what we hear from the people around us, from what we see in images and pictures and magazines and books, right? Even picking up a magazine, or as you're scrolling through a grocery aisle, you're waiting for checkout, what you see on the magazines. How often are you seeing beautiful Black women with their full hair on the cover of magazines that are going to be in the grocery stores that you frequent, right? How often are you kind of putting it into this perspective with the nose and, different cultures? I have seen some interesting, larger noses. And you don't see that on television. You don't see, if I'm looking at Bollywood movies, I don't see, people with big noses and, more unique features and darker skin and things like that. So that's what we have to think about. How do you recondition yourself to undo all of the things that colonialism has done to us, including colorism and everything that goes along with that, futurism, and so many other things, right? There's a documentary on Arab women wear fake bandages on their nose. It means you're rich to them. Really? Okay, Kiki, you're gonna have to put a little note. What is the name of that documentary? Let me know. Okay, so the next one, we're only on number 3. You find it normal to have Europeans in leadership positions. Oh, wow. Now, this goes into our work culture. Now, that's interesting. A tactic of colonizers was to oppress others by making them feel inferior through taking up leadership roles in communities, as well as in all aspects of life. In turn, the colonized began to feel underserving of their own spaces, which ultimately translates into a fear of speaking out against authority due to feeling inferior. This word inferior comes up multiple times here. Today, that means that innumerable leadership roles are prioritized and handed to Europeans in the region over Arabs, something that has been universally accepted despite its clear-cut colonial overhang. Every time, so this is something that, again, we're going to have to do more deeper dives about Africa. It's on the list, it's coming. But when you look at who controls the resources in African countries, now Ghana, the leadership in Ghana, I think, is taking those strides to be like, nope, we're keeping our resources, back off Europe. But majority of the country, it's just like a common thing. So that's interesting that they're pointing out that it's normal to kind of hand over the leadership to those that are universally, European, right? That's interesting, even in the Arab world. This one is interesting. Now, I think all of us suffer from imposter syndrome, so maybe it's just that those with a colonial mindset have it more. I appreciate easy. So pressing my hair or dreadlocks is best for my 4C hair. Yeah, dreadlocks. And that mentally, for me, seeing my hair, like, I think I would have anxiety. I think I would have anxiety over the thought of me having my hair in dreadlocks. That I feel like, openly, just being honest, that would give me anxiety. Now, it's one thing to have my hair in a curly state. I have had my hair in a curly state before, but I quickly will go back to the straight looks. That's the thing. It's not where I've embraced it so much to where, I straighten my hair less. That's where I want to be. That's the goal, right? That will take a lot of brainwashing, decolonization for me when it comes to the hair. Okay, let's get into you suffer from imposter syndrome. In simple terms, imposter syndrome is the feeling that you don't belong in a new space. This can take on the form of thinking you aren't intelligent enough, not rich enough, or just not worthy of success because of your ethnicity or class, which have both historically been used as tools for oppression by colonizers. This also has to do with the fact that most spaces are occupied by white or white passing people, which perpetuates the dominance of white supremacy. A lot to unpack there, right? So this feeling that you don't belong in a space. And oftentimes I hear this from different people when they take on a new promotion. or they take on a new job, or they're starting a business and they have this role, or they're hiring people, and you don't feel like you're worthy of the title or of the space. You could also think of it as someone that maybe has new money, and so they're in new spaces with new people, right? They feel out of place. They feel like they should not be there. That could be also examples of imposter syndrome. Now, I do want to know, it says this has a lot to do with the fact that most spaces are occupied by white or white passing people. Now, we're going to talk more about this. I also have some more photos that I'm going to share with you, because when it comes to Black people, this is how I relate with this. When and over the years, when we've seen people in certain spaces, is typically those that are closer to white, maybe a mixed race person, and it's been passed off as they're Black. But no, if we really undo history and we look at our history, we look at our Dorothy Dandridge, we look at our even some men that were mixed race that were successful. They were a person of color, but they were not Black, in the sense that if they walk into a room, the majority of their, ethnicity is African, to where anyone would note that. Oftentimes they were white passing, very close to European. So it makes me question if the people around them, Black people and white people, gave them an easier, and it's hard to say easier time, not that they didn't work for it, but it was easier for them to give them either a leadership position, an award, an opportunity, a job, etc., etc., etc. Because again, when you start looking into history, you look at those that came into wealth, those that were successful, those that began to be in magazines or set the first, they were the first for something. They have typically not been Black. Like in your face, you know that I'm not half, European. You can see that. You can see that my majority ethnicity is going to be likely African. May not be all, but mostly African. And you see that in the place of Barack Obama. Even though people may say, oh, I never thought he was a mixed race man, you don't have to necessarily think about it. It's not always something we think about. Your unconscious thoughts are going to be, he looks closer to me compared to this other person. Anyway, we'll talk about that in another video. I'm going to get to the last point. Kiki says Africa is slowly being bought by Asians. That is true. TikTok had a plane full of Asian businessmen on a flight to Africa. That is true. And the other thing that's happening in Africa that we're seeing as well, I'm surprised Dr. Umar isn't talking about this, maybe he is if you look at which is naturally going to happen, right? You have Asian men, businessmen, men that are successful. They're likely, when you have men in a place, women in a place, what's going to happen, right? So you see a lot of Asian men marrying those African women. So now you're going to likely you may have some of the same that has been done by the Europeans. Not saying that it will happen. However, you have to note history. You do have to know history. So it could be likely that in some parts of Africa, Asians could be looked at as the superior compared to African. I hope that is not the case. I hope it doesn't happen. I really do. But it could. Again, I always say the past repeats itself, even if it looks a little different. The basis normally seems the same. I feel like we as humans don't learn from our history. The last point on this one is you seek out Western validation. Seeking out Western validation, or in the US, since we already are in the Western hemisphere, you seek out white validation. We talked about the Will Smith incident where he hauls off and he gets on stage and he, you know, he gives a slap to Chris Rock. Some of the conversations I heard about that was, what are white people thinking? You're presenting, black men in a certain way, this and that. But why is it the focus, right? Why would that be the focus? How a black man is presenting himself to another culture? That should not be the immediate thought, but it is. Now, let's look at this point. You seek out Western validation. Again, this is not just for black people. This is colonial mentality affects 90% of the world, according to this. I don't know if 90% is actually correct, but it definitely would be a high percentage. Considering we are still living in societies that have only been free of colonial rule for just a few decades, colonial mentality persists, and the mere proximity to Western institutions or validation in Western social circles is a remnant of fabricated colonial superiority. Okay, the first thing now that I'm thinking after reading that is the desire here in the United States for Black people to go to a prestigious university that is not a historically Black college or university. It's not always first to think of Howard. I want to go to Howard, which is a recognized, really great school. That was, it is the makeup of Black people. Now, it's not all Black people. There are other groups of people that will attend Howard University. It's not like it's only this group of people. But the common thing is typically to look at Harvard, right? Your Princetons, your Yales, your Stanfords, right? And those are looked at as prestigious. Well, why isn't Howard University, especially amongst Black people here in the US, seen as prestigious? It's a great school. Question. An event like the Oscars, why is that seen as prestigious? What about, I don't know, BET Awards or some other awards that showcases Black talent in particular? What about, what else could I say on this topic? There's probably a lot more examples we could reference, but I think generally here in the US, we know that the prestigious or elite groups and businesses and schools are not based on Black culture. They're typically going to be European set, right? Why? Well, do we seek out Western or European validation would be the question. So these were the 7 signs you have colonial mentality. If you search colonial mentality, you will find some different articles. A lot of it actually focuses on Arab and Filipino. I was really surprised by that, right? But a lot of it is focused around those items or those areas and those cultures. So let's see. Kiki says, my great aunts told me about using scissors that they put on the stove to heat up and straighten their hair. Scissors? Oh my gosh. Okay. Now I'm thinking about it. Okay, I can see that. Instead, they accidentally cut their hair. They wanted to look like, I can't relate. See, okay, so the reason I straighten my hair, my direct thinking is not to look like a white woman at all, by any means. But the conditioning is that the straight hair it makes me look professional, sleek, clean, put together, right? This is also a mentality that I would have to undo from my own mother. My mom, even to this day, says things that are reinforcing that the straight hair looks best, right? Because it's not always the negative statements. Sometimes it's the reinforcements, right? So maybe and I can talk to this. I'm a young girl. There's a lighter toned girl. Someone comes over and they say, "Oh, your skin is so beautiful." To her, that's a positive reinforcement for her. So now she thinks my light skin is great, right? What do I think? And what does she think? Reinforcing that lighter is better. Maybe there's a lighter skinned girl, me as a dark skinned girl, and there's a white girl right there. Someone says, "Oh, you're beautiful, those beautiful blue eyes." What does that reinforce to her? Her eyes are beautiful. The lighter skinned girl without the blue eyes, her eyes, maybe she feels that they aren't beautiful. And then I would feel like mine aren't beautiful, right? The positive reinforces with hair. You wear your hair curly one day, an afro. No one says anything. In your family, maybe you just see your family. No one says anything. No one says anything at all. So it's not like someone said something bad to you. Next day, you went to the salon, they straightened your hair, you got a good silk press, edges on sleek and everything. I don't know, is it edges on fleek? I don't know, whatever. I feel like I'm old. I'm out of the loop. After you're out of school, you're out of the loop. But everyone says, "Oh, your hair looks so beautiful." Everybody in the family, your hair looks so beautiful. Positive reinforcer. So we even, aside from media, aside from art, aside from books, aside from, what people are saying, even naturally, we as people may be reinforcing the colonial mentality ourselves to each other. Hey, Partly Cloudy, thanks for coming through. Shout out to my member, KB. Thank you for being a member. Thank you for supporting. Kiki is saying a Mexican chick said they are taught to copy off the top race to compete. I didn't know there was a top race. Interesting. I've never heard of that terminology, but if you just look at the world right now, if you were to say, hey, the wealthiest people in the world are the top race, obviously you would look at the Europeans or you would look at white people, right? I've never heard that term used, but I could get what they're saying. Even in Mexico, like if you look at telenovelas, you're not saying telenovelas, you don't see a lot of Afro Latinas on the television. You don't see it. Who do you see? You're going to see, and you're not even going to see as many tan, people that you could deem that have, that more African ancestry. You're going to see, or even, native ancestry, right? Because they're native features that you will see. No, you're going to see those that have more of the European ancestry on the telenovelas. And you guys know I used to watch them. I just finished one, and I didn't see. I saw a few more people that were Moorish, and actually, I watched La Reina del Sur, and this is called the Queen of the South. You have to watch the actual original version, because there is a Moorish man, someone from Morocco, and you can tell he has the look. And there's this part of the show, I won't tell you because in case you want to watch the show, but there's a scene where he is trying to find a replacement woman to work in his restaurant / bar. That's a nice way to put his business. But he looks at the girl, he kind of eyes her up and down, he walks around her, all these things. And one of the things he says is, "You're a little dark for my taste." It's a Mexican woman. Shades lighter than me. But the woman that he liked were lighter. And this is a show on Netflix. "You're a little dark for my taste." Ugh, I'll take you, but you're a little dark for my taste. She didn't bat an eye. So Mexico, like a lot of places in the world, colonial mentality. King of Kill says, "I'm here, Queen. I'm lurking in the background because I'm busy at work." Well, hey, I hope you're enjoying the conversation. Feel free to leave me a comment, King of Kill. Shout out for being a member. Shout out for being supportive. Hey, Smart Aviation. Oh, you're in here so follow this account as well. I think this is Edward's other account. what else did I want to talk about? Because I feel like I might be out of time. Are we out of time? We have a few more minutes. So this other thing I want to show. Let me see if I can find this article. This was interesting. I think this is a nice thought piece. So I'm going to share this with you all as well. And then we might be about to call it night, but I do want to hear what you all think of in terms of how could we brainwash ourselves, right? How can we do it? Can we do it? Does anyone think that we're in a place where there's just no way we cannot do it? All right, so this is the article, and it's called Ending Colorism in the Black Community. It's by Peggy Packer. Nice image there. She starts out saying racism is more than just black and white. Definitely is. Colorism is the discrimination against someone with a darker skin tone, most often within the same racial group. In my own experience, colorism is far too common in the Black community. Now, I do want to note here, colorism is an issue in most countries that you're going to go to, right? If you go to Mexico, if you go to China, if you go to, I don't know, South Africa, right? A lot of the world, if you go to Brazil, right, Dominican Republic, you're going to run into it. So it's not just a Black community thing. I would say personally, it's a people of color thing, but I feel like in the Black community, we're just more open to saying it. You won't hesitate to be able to easily find someone online that is a Black person saying, I don't like, people that look like that. I only like people that look more white. They don't say it in those terms. They're typically using the terms red bone or light skin or mixed or whatever, right? Or you're finding men that say they don't want to have children that look like them. That's another form of colorism. That's basically saying, hey, as a Black man, I don't like my skin. I don't want to have children with the same skin. If you like your skin, because on the other end of this, I've heard white people say, I would like children that look like me. I hope they get my blue eyes. I hope they get my green eyes. I hope they get my hair, my blonde hair that most people don't have, right? So very different ways of thinking, ways of speaking, openly in the public, right? Now, you may hear white people say, oh, I wish, my skin wasn't as pale. I wish I had a little bit of a tan. You may hear that. Is that a bad thing? I don't know. Let's see. I like and respect Australian Aboriginals. They proudly call themselves Black. Cubans and Dominicans don't. Aboriginals have had issues as well. I watched this video where Aboriginals in Australia were saying they were Aboriginal, right? However, they looked very un-Aboriginal. They looked white. If I saw them walking down the street, I would never think that they were Aboriginal at all, in the slightest. So there's some of the same issues. I think they were talking about this because Aboriginals were receiving benefits. And so it was this question of, why do you get benefits? You don't look Aboriginal. The only way someone's going to know is if you tell them you are Aboriginal. Whereas me, as an Aboriginal person, I am seen as Aboriginal. So whether I say I'm not, whatever, I'm still going to be discriminated against. I deserve these benefits. I don't see you as deserving of them. So they have there are some issues. Like when I say the colonialism has caused, it's so many problems throughout the world. It goes beyond us. Definitely goes beyond Black people in the US. It is a worldwide thing. But yes, I agree. Cubans, Dominicans definitely do not. Whenever I've come across Dominicans, they are very, very distinctively saying, I am not a Black person. I am Dominican. That's very common. 100% Kiki, you're 100% right. Edward says it sounds like the caste system. And then, yeah, definitely. I didn't know colorism was bad in South Asia and Oh, yes. Yes. Look at Filipino. Like, even look at, uh, there are Asian people that are darker skinned. We just don't commonly see them. You would include Indian people as Asian too, but I'm even talking about China, Filipino, people from Thailand, etc. That's why bleaching and brightening oftentimes is bleaching at some extent, just a lighter way to say it, easier, softer way uh, to say that. But yes, there's a lot of bleaching products. Why would they have bleaching products? Well, because they can tan, because there are some people that are naturally darker. I have met many Indian people that are dark as me or darker than me. But, there is skin bleaching. Kiki, colorism is prevalent in Asian countries. Yes, thank you, Edward. I appreciate that. Okay, let's get back into this. So, society tends to favor African Americans who have lighter skin, we know this, for no other reason than the fact that they appear somehow less black. And so, as we were, I'll post another video as I'm reacting to Dr. Umar. But one of Dr. Umar's concerns that I do respect in a sense, I just don't like how he's getting across his points. And I don't like his points because they seem to be very disrespectful and take away from everything that he's trying to point out, in my opinion. However, his thought process is more about, taking away from the African um, ethnicity, right? When you see a black person, are they going to be true to what we see in Africa, or are they going to be a more mixed version or a less quote unquote black or less African version, right? Why do you think we rarely see dark skinned men and women in movies and TV shows, let alone playing lead roles? And this gets into my point from earlier. You have to look at our history in the United States and Black culture and look at the first Black people to do something. First Black person to win an Oscar, the first Black model, first, whatever. Our Eartha Kitts, our Dorothy Dandridges, our Holly Berrys. Is there a reason, right? Our Barack Obamas. um, you know, there is a difference, right? Why do you think so many people who claim they are attracted to African Americans seem to only like the lighter ones, which is interesting? Personally, I haven't seen this when we look outside of the culture as much, because typically if you're looking at maybe say like a white man or European man and interest in a black woman, typically from my experience what I've seen is that they just kind of look, black woman, this is exotic and different and yada yada, your hair is different and this is different, so it's interesting, it's kind of intriguing. Or you have other people, other men that are like totally anti that, they're not attracted to them or whatever, right? So I haven't seen that as much, but definitely within our, like, the black culture, typically if you're attracted to another black person, we have heard, right? We've heard things. Some people are definitely attracted to those that are a lighter complexion or have more European features, because that's the thing too. I recognize that I don't know if I can say that I have the most African features, but I definitely have African features, and obviously the skin tone. All right, so it says it's not because they are smarter or more attractive or better in any way for that matter. It is because they are light skinned and deemed more acceptable by society. So remember the other article that we were looking at from the Arab perspective. The world has been brainwashed, keyword brainwashed, into falsely believing that lighter is better. Yeah, they're black, but they're not really black. Except we are. The saddest thing about colorism is the fact that colored people are the biggest perpetrators. We fail every time that we choose to ignore colorism. And we have to give ourselves some grace because this is a conditioning. It's a conditioning that we're continuing to undergo. It's not like, oh, we've been conditioned, now we can uncondition ourselves. No, we're going to have to uncondition ourselves over and over and over and over again because we're constantly being reconditioned into, hey, white is better. Hey, white is right. Hey, white is wealthy. Hey, white is the, and black is bad. Black is bad and black is bad and this and that. These features are bad. Big nose is bad. Big hair is bad. All of these things, right? Everyone's saying, especially in Japan. Kiki's saying we could definitely use more dark skinned actresses and artists as symbols, but it will be year 3022. And still be colorism. I can just teach my kids. Yeah, I think it will be very difficult. So this person is saying I'm guilty of this myself. This person is saying I'm light skinned, mixed race, black woman. There's an issue in that I already see. You're a mixed race woman. So you would say mixed race this and this, because if you're mixed race, you're not just a black woman. You would be mixed race, Asian and black, white and black, whatever. You would say you're mixed race. But right now we have this society where mixed race is black. Well, no, it isn't, because if you walk into a room, likely, I'm saying, not everyone, but in a lot of cases, you're not just going to appear like a black woman. So I think that needs to be addressed. It really does. Up until a little over a year ago, I ignored the fact that colorism existed, because you probably have the privilege to ignore colorism because you are a mixed race woman. I ignored the many times people use light skin or mix as a compliment toward me. Remember what I said about positive reinforcers. Ignored the times people would compare me to darker girls. I completely failed to understand how this fetishizing of light skin black people would affect the self-esteem of those darker than me. Just because we think it doesn't affect us, when in reality it really benefits us, doesn't mean that we can just ignore them. Ignoring colorism means that you are okay with being a fetish, with letting people talk down on darker skinned people in order to lift you up. Being a light-skinned black person who ignores colorism is selfish and wrong. How can we claim to be against racism but perpetuate a different form of it within our own community? It is important for us to all understand our worth and know that we are more than just a shade of brown. They have a typo in here. Gotta point that out, but it's okay. We have to stop letting people feed us this messed up idea that you aren't valuable unless you're light. We have to push the entire black community to stop embracing colorism. We have to end the rhetoric that light skin is better and that dark means ugly. Because yes, if you put it in perspective, if you're going to agree that your light skin is better than a dark skinned person, well, then you're also agreeing to white skin is better than your light skin. You can't say that light skin is better than dark skin without saying white skin is better than light skin. It's all under the same umbrella of colonial mentality, the brainwashing of colonialism. Kiki says, Sri Lankans are darker than me. Yes, Sri Lankan. I'm glad you brought that up. Oh, that's another thing. So that would actually be put in this category, I think, of the 7 signs you have colonial mentality, because they pointed out you dislike your natural hair and your natural nose. But with Asians, maybe this perpetuates itself with the shape of their eyes, because we know that many Asians, especially those that have grown up in the US, especially during a certain time period, there were different derogatory terms that they were called because of their eye shape. And that is a specific trait of Asian people, right? So that definitely would be a sign. So Kiki was asking, what I'm responding to is bleaching skin the same as Asians getting eyelid surgery and Arabs getting nose jobs? So yes, that would definitely be a part of this colonial mentality. Not exactly skin bleaching, but under the same umbrella. Like you don't like your skin, you don't like your nose shape, you don't like your hair. All of this, they're features of ourselves that we are being taught and have been taught to either hate, to think is inferior to European, etc., etc. Right? Now, what was the last thing? Do we have time? Okay, we got like 4 minutes because I don't want this to be a long one. I will just show this last source. Let me note this. I'll share this in the comments so you're able to see what we were just looking at. Please do hit the like button, y'all. This was an opinion piece, so I didn't really care about the source. This was a light-skinned woman's opinion or a mixed-race woman's opinion on this topic, and so I thought it was interesting. So the other source, let's see. You all know I'm so bad at saying hit the like button. Thank you, Edward. I appreciate it because I'm just not a YouTuber. I'm not meant for this YouTube life. I'm not meant, but we're gonna make it work because I like chatting with you all, and so YouTube is the best platform right now for that. But yeah, I'm not a YouTuber. I don't remind myself. I'm gonna have to put a sticky on the thing to say like, hit like button, hit the like button. Okay, let's see. So this is the last one. If I can find it, let's see here. I have all of these I have all of these tabs open for Hatch Sleep. It's something I'm thinking of purchasing because I need to get on a really good sleep pattern for myself, and I'm not on one now. So you were talking about Kiki for Asian people. When you search colonial mentality, there's going to be a lot of pieces that are revolving around Filipinos, right? So before we get into this, I'm going to read your comment here. Kiki says Beyonce's dad could not pass the paper bag test to get into college, but got in because of his basketball scholarship. I think it was HBCU. Why? And I think Beyonce's dad, didn't he do certain things to make sure that I maybe not remembering this correctly, but did he not do certain things to make sure Beyonce looked more European or, appealing that way with her skin tone and hair? Let me know, Kiki, because I'm not the biggest Beyonce fan, but I do like Beyonce. I think with her face, I feel like she does have, the European feet, not the European features, the African features with her face, but she does have the light skin, and then she has, I don't know if her hair is naturally that blonde. I don't believe her hair is black or brown or like dark brown, but I don't think it's naturally that blonde, right? So the blonde hair, she looks very similar to Shakira. I always, whenever those two were together, like in that Beautiful Liar video with Beyonce and Shakira, she and Beyonce would look the same. Like they would do shots going back and forth, and I was like, which one is which? Because she does look more European. Anyway, that's a side note. But she represents herself as black. I will recognize her as black, of course. She just has lighter skin. Let's see. These dissertations and projects. Okay, so what I want to highlight in here is the title: Identity, Colonial Mentality, and Decolonizing the Mind. My question to you all, and something we can talk about again if there's interest, you all will have to let me know and leave me a comment after the video post. But decolonizing the mind, can this really be done? And if so, how are we going to do it? Because we have history that tells us white is right. We have artwork, we have literature, we have movies, we have books, we have magazines, we have people, we have video podcasts, we have fill in the blank, name it, a part of our culture, music, right? Plenty of music saying, they want the blue eyed girl, they want the blonde this. I remember reading Hispanic literature where a man wanted a fair skinned blonde wanted a rubia, right? He wanted that blonde haired white European woman. He didn't want his wife who was not that. Dark hair, right? I don't know if they were what ethnicity exactly, what country they were from, but they were Hispanic and less European. So he wanted that blonde hair and that fair skin. Because, and I remembered this, I have to find the source. Read so many pieces of literature and I sold a lot of my books back to university because I was like, good riddance, not going back there. Thanks for the degree. Adios. But I remember that he said the reason he wanted the blonde hair is because if she had hair anywhere, you wouldn't be able to see it because her hair would be blonde. And something else about the blonde thing, why he said he wanted that. Sounds similar to how some of the podcasters say they want a white woman because X, Y, and Z. So I do want to express the point that it's not just this, some of the mentality, some of the things you hear, some of the hurtful things you even hear. It's not just within the Black community. However, in America at least, it seems like we're a lot more open about it in terms of social media, which is really sad. Anyway, getting back to the Filipino Americans. I want to read the abstract and then I'm going to go. Colonial mentality is defined as the perception of ethnic and cultural inferiority, here's that word again, and a form of internalized racial oppression. It is deemed a direct consequence of the Philippines' long history of colonialism. The empirical qualitative study explored whether colonial mentality resonated with Filipino Americans who were born and raised in the United States. The study also investigated if and how the process of decolonization of the mind transpired within individuals. One way decolonization of the mind can be conceptualized is the process of understanding one's history to understand the present. Also examined was Filipino versus Filipino American identity and how these perceptions of identity were related to colonial mentality and decolonizing the mind. In addition, attitudes about mental health were delved into on a micro and macro level using the above named frameworks. Post-colonial theory served as a theoretical foundation for this study. Results revealed that both colonial mentality and decolonizing the mind were true experiences for the majority of participants, and a multiplicity of manifestations emerged. Finally, mental health implications for the field of social work were drawn. It is recommended that social workers working with this population be cognizant of these possible contributing factors to Filipino American mental health. They're saying that for the Filipino community, definitely we need this in every other community. Black, Hispanic, Indian, other Asian groups for sure. So that is the study there. There are multiple studies, particularly on Filipino Americans, actually. So I raised the question to you. Let me know what you think. Do you feel like today we are in a place where we could begin a process of decolonization, right? Which would include us getting away from colorism and featureism and all of these things that we were taught are inferior to, ourselves, people of color, inferior to white or European people, however you want to describe them. How would we get there? Because I think it really would take us to be able to reverse some of the things by saying Black is better, Hispanic is better, Asian is better, for us to get to a balancing point. And how do you do that in a world where if you just praise a Black woman publicly, there's hate coming from the dominant group? We talked about this, and we talked about a specific example that I shared on this on my channel. Black women being praised. White people coming out of the well, white women. I can't say there were men. I did not see any white men in particular, which I think, I don't think white men are coming to women and saying, no, no, they're not. They don't want that heat. I don't think they would even, directly do that. But white women saying, no, 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 you need to say all women. Can't even highlight a, black woman online without getting some form of hate. Now, there were others that did not. They were praising, the woman. But in a time where anything that's not white still gets questioned and still gets told, no, you shouldn't be doing this, how do we even get to decolonization in this type of world? So I'll leave you with that. That is my thought. I'll leave the last comments. Edward says, interesting, Kiki. Kiki says Italians love black women. See, that's like Q Paolindo, because Paolindo, if you don't know, he is he's a European man. He lives in Italy and he will frequent my live chats, and he definitely has no qualms about it with saying like, hey, I love I love y'all. Y'all are beautiful. I love the hair. I love all of it. So, there are definitely people, but the sad part and the shame is that outside of our, communities of color, white and European people can say like, hey, we love your skin and we love your hair and this and that, but that is not going to take away from years and years and years of conditioning and continual conditioning that is had throughout all things that we call culture, even to our language, right? You think about darkness, you think about black, right? There are just phrases that are used in comparison to white. There's typically negative connotations in English language compared to white, white color, right? And they're really not colors. They're not. But even thinking about animals, we even do this to animals. Black cats. Black cats are, scary and this and that, and they're unlucky here in the US. Actually, I love black cats. They're so cute. They just look so sleek, that fur. But in Japan, places like Japan, black cats are considered lucky, right? So rethinking all of that, literature, music, media, TV, books, sounds like a lot of work to me. Does it sound like a lot of work for you? With that, let me know what you think in the comments. If you have thoughts about how we can colonize ourselves, de-brainwash ourselves from all of this as people of color. Again, this is not just for the Black community. This is for really all of us, including white people, because I don't see this happening without the help of white people. However, to tell a group of people, hey, you're at the top. Everyone wants to be like you, even on a subconscious level. If they don't know it, they do. We need you to help with giving that up. Do you think they're going to do it? A small percentage might, maybe. But looking at history, you guys know I like trends. I like history. I like to see what people have done in the past. Does the past tell you that that's what's going to happen? No, it does not. I'll tell you quickly. No, that is not what history tells us at all. So how do we, in this environment, in this place, how would we reverse it? If you have thoughts, let me know. Hello, Miss Forworley. You'll have to catch the replay. This is a good one for you. I'm sure you have many thoughts on this topic. Thank you, Edward, for the shout out. I'm glad you thought it was an informational video. With that, I'm going to close it out. Again, please do let me know any thoughts you have about any of this in the comments. I'm going to leave the articles in the about section as well. And with that, I will see you lovely people on another day. Have a good night. Bye.